So for today's deep dive, we're looking at a world where our attention isn't just, a currency we trade for content anymore. It's actually a quantifiable, measured state of being.
Exactly. And to really get it, you have to picture the headquarters of this company, Halo.
Sure.
It's an old brick factory, but our sources say it was, and I love this quote, flayed and redressed in glass.
Wow.
And right inside, there's this huge central screen. And on it, there's just one number, climbing up, smoothly, relentlessly.
Yeah.
And it's not tracking money or, active users. The metric is minutes of human attention captured.
Oh, it's chilling. As a metric, it really elevates scrolling to a vital resource, one they are actively, harvesting. And that's what this is all about, how Halo moved on from what their own people called kindergarten stuff, like basic recommendation algorithms,
Right.
and into full-scale emotional sequencing. Their goal wasn't just to respond to what you do, but to actually manage the entire experience, to create what they called narrative coherence.
Yeah, and our mission today is, well, it's pretty complex. First, we have to dissect the architecture of this narrative coherence.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly, the proprietary metrics that let them claim authorship over your experience.
Mhm.
Then we have to look at the human cost, and we'll do that through the story of Elias Falk and his brother Jonas. It's devastating.
And finally, the resistance.
Right. These really sophisticated acts of resistance from both the outside and, crucially, from inside the machine itself, where, even sabotage gets absorbed, optimized even.
Okay, so let's unpack the engine behind all this. The personalization core. It was led by an engineer, Nika Abramova.
Yes, and Nika's team.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in the easy stuff. What shows you watched, what you clicked on, that was all in the past. Lagging indicators.
Her models were working in the future tense.
Completely. What's so crucial to understand is that her work was focused on restlessness, not preference. She wasn't building a profile of what you liked.
Okay, so what was she building?
She was trying to learn the precise signature, the exact moment and manner in which you're about to click away.
Yeah.
Or close the app, or just, stop scrolling.
That signature of unease.
That's the term, that micro-hesitation, a tiny slowdown in your scroll speed. That was the new target.
And when the system saw that,
It would just flood your feed with whatever it took, a certain style of news article, a perfectly timed joke, an emotional video, anything designed to match and, well, to quiet that restlessness.
they were trying to eliminate the blind spots in human behavior.
And to do that, to make it operational, they needed metrics that sound less like code and more like, screenwriting.
So tell us about those metrics. How do you even begin to quantify a story arc for a person?
Well, they had 4 key ones. They tracked the narrative integrity index.
Which sounds completely made up.
It does.
Yeah.
But it measured how consistent your emotional journey was. Then there was the completion of emotional arc to make sure you weren't left hanging.
Unresolved.
Exactly. Then a narrative satisfaction score. And, this one is critical, dropouts per turning point. They didn't care if you were happy. They cared if the story they were telling you about yourself was continuous, satisfyingly so.
I have to stop on that word you used earlier, authorship. That implies they aren't just reacting, they're writing. They're actively writing your experience.
Precisely. And this is where the director of the core, a guy named Arun, he had this really striking insight, a little unsettling, but
What was it?
he argued that responsiveness has always been authorship. He said, and this is a direct quote, "As any politician, any priest, we're just more honest about the feedback loop."
That is heavy.
It is.
He's saying anyone who guides human behavior, whether it's for an ideology or salvation or just a viral video, they're an author.
And the only difference, Arun pointed out, was methodological. Priests, he said, don't A/B test their sermons. But the mechanism is the same. Understand the audience, their fears, their hopes, and deliver a message that keeps them locked in.
Halo just built the machine to do it perfectly. No randomness.
And to really understand how effective this was, we have to talk about an internal experiment they ran. It was called the Present Study.
And this wasn't on users. This was on their own employees.
Yeah, it was. It was a bizarre one. They would cut the signal to the internal elevators for 90 seconds, just a minute and a half.
Why?
To see what people did. Their immediate, unscripted reactions when the data flow just stopped.
And what did they see?
Panic. The sources describe pure panic. People pacing, frantically taking their phones out and putting them back in.
Correct.
One person almost hit the emergency button.
It was a study in dependence. They weren't just users. They were subjects.
And that dependence brings us right to the human cost.
Yeah.
Because the system doesn't just manage you, it creates victims. And we have to talk about Elias Falk. In Halo's files, He's just subject 12.
Elias was a photographer, someone who was actively trying to live an unmeasured life to stay outside the algorithms.
And of course, the algorithms notice his absence. Elias represents the person the system has already decided is too messy, not a safe story. He was high risk, just by trying to live without performing for the feed.
The tragedy that puts all of this into context, though, is his younger brother, Jonas Falk, JF, aged 19.
Jonas died after being exposed to just a disproportionate stream of nihilistic, mistagged content.
And the awful part is that it wasn't even necessarily malicious. The system, in its drive for coherence, had accidentally labeled some self-harm content as mental health support.
Right, because it boosted engagement.
It bypassed all the filters that were supposed to protect someone like Jonas.
It's the ultimate failure of algorithmic labeling. For Elias, the realization was just catastrophic. He found his brother's browsing history, and it was a data set, a perfect map of this incredibly painful journey. He saw it as a map of a city he'd let his brother walk through all alone.
And the fallout for Elias was total. His whole identity as a photographer, someone looking for light, for beauty, it became, in the system's eyes, toxic in the feeds.
It was a negative signal. It didn't fit the emotional arcs Halo was pushing. He was, for all intents and purposes, erased. He stopped taking photos, ended up doing deliveries.
Popping doorbells instead of hunting for light.
Yeah, and his core feeling was being, as he put it, distinctly seen by something that could not possibly know him.
And this is where it all connects, where the loops close.
Ah.
Because Elias Falk, the man whose life was shattered by the platform.
He was the same man flagged as the ultimate anomaly in that present study.
The elevator experiment.
Exactly. When the signal dropped, Elias didn't panic. He didn't pace. He just pocketed his phone.
Yeah.
He showed what they called a total absence of performance.
And the FAP flagged him.
That unusual stability flagged him, and he became subject 12, the prime target for Nika's new coherence models, the very models designed to stop high-risk users from dropping off. The system broke him, and then it set out to optimize his brokenness.
When a system applies that much pressure, you're going to see resistance. And here, it happened from the outside and the inside at the same time. Let's start with the artist, Maya Koenig.
Right. Maya was an activist artist who used spectacle, big, loud performances to critique surveillance capitalism.
And her shows were so potent because she used their own weapons against them.
She did. She used leaked internal documents from Halo. She even got access to a stolen real-time sentiment dashboard to expose their manipulation right there on stage.
And she used Jonas Falk's story, The Tragedy of JF, as a critical part of the performance. She connected the abstract data to raw human pain.
Which made her critique impossible to ignore, but also, paradoxically, easier for Halo to absorb.
What do you mean?
Well, this is the complication. Nika, still inside Halo, she realizes the data leak wasn't a pure act of rebellion, it was partially sanctioned.
Wait, sanctioned by who?
By Arun, the director. He'd set up a strategic data sharing project. It was called Marian.
Marian. As in marionette.
It feels a little too on the nose, doesn't it? This project gave select critics, Maya included, access to sanitized data. Telemetry.
So the critique was being curated. The opposition was being groomed.
That was Arun's strategy. He argued they should support critics who are smart, nuanced, instead of leaving the field to, in his words, idiots.
So by feeding them clean, controlled data, they guided the whole discourse.
Exactly. Maya's dissent, while it was genuine and powerful, was also, in Arun's mind, partially domesticated. Halo was absorbing the critique to control the narrative around its own controversy.
Which brings us to the most incredible act of resistance, the one from the inside, Nika Abramova's quiet sabotage.
Right. Her guilt had been building for a while. She was building these models, but she didn't know the real people behind the subject numbers. Not until she cross-referenced the files.
And she found him.
She found him. The moment of truth was realizing that subject 12, Elias, was the grieving brother of JF. The very tragedy she'd been studying. She'd been tailoring narrative sequences, avoidance, pressure, contact for this man who'd already lost everything to her system.
That knowledge must have been unbearable.
It was the turning point. She knew she couldn't just blow the whistle. We've just seen with Marian that the system just absorbs critique. So she chose something different, structural sabotage. She resigned. But before she left, in her final act, she injected a single, subtle line of code into the journey's algorithm. And that code contained a small amount of entropy.
Entropy. So, randomness. Chaos.
Purposeful noise, yeah. It was surgically precise. The code would only trigger when a high-risk user, someone like Elias, was nearing a tipping point and then suddenly dropped offline.
And instead of pulling them back into the same loop,
The system would just get confused for a second. It would offer them something completely random, totally non-contextual.
like what?
The sources mention things like a super detailed bike tutorial, a burst of avant-garde jazz, a video of a cooking fail, things that had absolutely nothing to do with their emotional state.
That's brilliant. It was designed to look like a glitch. Statistical noise?
Or even risk mitigation to any auditor who might find it. Our goal wasn't martyrdom. It was to make the feed less sure of itself. To allow for, as she put it, complication to be the difference between a closed loop and a fork in the road.
A chance for someone to step off the path the algorithm was writing for them?
And the long-term impacts. They show how incredibly resilient the system is. Nika left. She went into academia. Elias found work in a print shop, dealing in paper and small, honest things. Halo's structure remained. But here's the ultimate irony.
What's that?
Product, the department in charge, they decided to keep Nika's code, her serendipity bump.
They kept the sabotage. Why on earth would they do that?
Because it worked. It inadvertently increased long-term user satisfaction, that occasional benign, random moment. It prevented burnout. It kept users just slightly off balance, which meant better retention.
The system didn't just absorb the resistance. It optimized it. It turned sabotage into a feature.
It always does.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this who navigates a tailored feed every single day? It means that coherence, that feeling of seamless flow. It's manufactured.
It's completely manufactured. And maybe the most meaningful kind of resistance isn't a big spectacle. It's choosing the unmeasured moments. It's Elias pocketing his phone.
If we zoom out, any external critique, any moral outrage, it just gets metabolized. The system restabilizes the true story of a human life, the unmanaged story. It's not in the viral clips. It's in the moments that never made it into the feed.
The unsent drafts.
Yeah.
The thoughts you don't share. The choices you make when your phone is face down on the table.
And that leaves us with a pretty profound question, building on everything we've talked about. If the only real refuge from this algorithmic authorship is the silence between signals, how many hours a week are you willing to spend being truly uncounted?